I always thought my parents were just really social people who knew everyone's business. Growing up in Millfield, a quiet suburban town outside Sacramento, Mom and Dad seemed to have their finger on the pulse of every family drama, every new arrival, every minor scandal that rippled through our neighborhood on Cedar Lane. What I discovered on March 15, 2023, made me realize their knowledge went far beyond casual gossip. I was 28, visiting for the weekend to help Dad with some home repairs. Saturday morning, I was up early grabbing coffee when I heard them talking in hushed tones in the living room. Nothing unusual there. My parents were always early risers. But something in their voices made me pause. "The Henderson family is fighting again," Mom whispered. "She threw something at the window around 2 a.m. "Did you get it on camera?" Dad asked. "Already downloaded. Want me to start the file?" "Camera?" I crept closer to the living room, staying behind the kitchen wall. Through the doorway, I could see them huddled around Dad's laptop, but I couldn't see the screen. "There, see how he grabbed her arm?" Mom pointed. "That's definitely escalating from last week. Should we report it this time?" "Not yet. Let's see what happens tonight." My blood ran cold. They were watching the neighbors. Not just casually observing, they had cameras, files, and were tracking patterns of behavior. I backed away, mind racing. How long had this been going on? How many neighbors were they watching? The rest of the morning felt surreal. Mom made her usual elaborate breakfast, chatting about the weather and asking about my job. Dad worked on replacing a kitchen faucet, grumbling about the hardware store's prices. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't shake what I'd heard. That afternoon, while they were both out grocery shopping, I couldn't resist looking around. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I'd misunderstood something innocent. But in Dad's home office, I found evidence that shattered that hope. 3 external hard drives labeled with dates going back 5 years. A notebook with detailed observations. March 12th, Williams family, 2347 Cedar Lane, unusual activity in garage 11:30 p.m. March 8th, Martinez house, 2351 Cedar Lane, multiple visitors, plates documented. A folder on his computer desktop labeled Neighborhood Watch contained hundreds of video files, organized by address and date. I opened one at random. It showed the Johnsons' backyard from an angle that could only be from our upstairs window. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. from 2 weeks ago. I watched their teenage son sneak out through the back gate. Another file showed Mrs. Chen from across the street taking her trash out at 5:30 a.m., but the camera zoomed in on her license plate as she left for work. Why would they need that? The most disturbing folder was labeled Concerns. It contained dozens of files of neighbors and what appeared to be private moments. The Williams family argument Mom had mentioned. The Martinez family's late-night visitors. The teenage Burke boy smoking something behind his house. My parents weren't just watching, they were collecting evidence. I heard their 2016 Honda Accord pull into the driveway. I quickly closed everything and went back to the kitchen, but my hands were shaking. When they walked in with groceries, Mom's cheerful "How was your afternoon, honey?" felt like a performance. That evening, I couldn't concentrate on anything. During dinner, Dad casually mentioned that the Burke boy has been staying out pretty late lately. Mom added that she'd noticed some concerning visitors at the Martinez house. Each comment felt loaded with secret knowledge. After they went to bed, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the cameras I might have missed, all the files I hadn't seen. Around 2 a.m., I heard movement upstairs. I crept to my childhood bedroom door and listened. Footsteps in Dad's office. The soft sound of his computer starting up. Then Mom's voice. "Anything interesting tonight?" Chen left again. "That's the 3rd time this week she's gone out after midnight." "Are you recording?" "Always." I realized they were conducting active surveillance right now, while I was in the house. How many nights had they done this? How many neighbors had no idea they were being watched and catalogued? The next morning, I confronted them. I didn't mention going through Dad's files, but I asked directly about the cameras and the watching. The look they exchanged was everything I needed to know. Not guilt, not shame, calculation. They were deciding how much to tell me. "We're keeping the neighborhood safe," Mom said finally. "You know how many break-ins there were before we started paying attention?" "Paying attention?" I repeated. "You're secretly filming people in their homes." "We're documenting patterns," Dad corrected. "If something happens, we have evidence. The police have thanked us multiple times." "The police know about this?" Another look between them. "Of course they know. We're not doing anything illegal." But something in their tone suggested there was more to this story. The way they kept referring to the program and the others hinted at something larger than just my parents' overzealous neighborhood watching. I left that Sunday with more questions than answers. My parents weren't just nosy neighbors. They were part of something organized, something that had been going on for years. And if they were watching everyone else this closely, what else were they hiding? The drive back to my apartment in Stockton felt like escaping a surveillance state. Every time I called them after that, their casual references to neighbors' activities took on a sinister tone. They weren't just watching, they were hunting for something. What I didn't know was that my confrontation had triggered a response. Within a week, I started noticing things. The same dark blue 2019 Chevrolet Tahoe parked near my apartment complex. A man in a baseball cap who seemed to be walking his dog at exactly the same time I left for work each morning. My parents' neighborhood watch was apparently more extensive than I'd realized. Have you ever felt like your own family was hiding something from you? What would you do if you discovered your parents had been secretly watching your neighbors for years? Let me know in the comments, because what I found out next made me realize this went far beyond just my parents' house. I thought the worst thing about discovering my parents' neighborhood surveillance was the betrayal of trust. What my younger sister Emma revealed to me 3 days later made me realize I had no idea how deep this went. Emma called me at work on March 18, 2023. She was crying, not the frustrated tears I'd seen when we argued about Mom and Dad's watching, but genuine terror. "They told me everything," she whispered. "Ryan, they've been watching us too. Our whole lives." I left work immediately and drove to her apartment in Riverside. Emma was 25, a nurse at Regional Medical Center, and the most level-headed person I knew. When I found her chain smoking on her balcony with shaking hands, I knew something catastrophic had happened. "After you left Sunday, they sat me down," she began. "Said they needed to tell me something before I found out the wrong way like you did." Emma lit another cigarette with the one she was finishing. "They showed me files, Ryan. Files with our names on them. Photos of us from when we were kids, teenagers, adults. They've been documenting everything we've ever done." "What do you mean everything?" "Remember when I was 16 and snuck out to that party at Jessica's house? They knew. They followed me. They have photos of me drinking, photos of the boys I was with, even photos of me throwing up in the bushes." My stomach dropped. "They followed you?" "They followed both of us. All those times we thought we were getting away with something? They knew. They were there." Emma's voice cracked. "Dad showed me pictures of you and Sarah making out in your car senior year. Pictures of you smoking weed behind the gym. Pictures of you at college parties." The ground felt like it was shifting beneath me. Every memory of teenage rebellion, every moment I'd thought I was alone, every private experience, they'd been watching. "How long?" I asked. "Since we were kids. They said it started as safety, making sure we didn't get hurt or lost. But it never stopped." Emma stubbed out her cigarette. "Ryan, they have videos of me in my college dorm room. They somehow got cameras in there. That's impossible. I know how it sounds. But they showed me. They knew about every boyfriend, every breakup, every night I came home late. They knew about the pregnancy scare junior year before I even told you." I sat down hard on her patio chair. The pregnancy scare. Emma had confided in me about that 3 years after it happened, said she'd never told anyone. But our parents had known. They said they were protecting us. Emma continued. Making sure we didn't make mistakes that would ruin our lives. Dad kept saying they were guiding our choices by intervening when necessary. Intervening how? Emma's laugh was bitter. Remember Derek, the guy I was crazy about sophomore year? The one who just suddenly stopped calling? She looked at me. Dad talked to him. Told him things about our family that made Derek decide I wasn't worth the complications. They sabotaged your relationship? Multiple relationships. Jobs too. Remember when I didn't get that position at Sacramento General? The one I was perfect for? Mom made some calls, convinced them I wasn't stable enough for that level of responsibility. I thought about my own life. The job opportunities that had fallen through unexpectedly. The girlfriend in college who'd broken up with me claiming I had too much family drama, when I'd never told her about any family issues. They're still doing it, Emma said quietly. Dad knew about my current relationship with Marcus before I told them. He knew we'd been fighting last week. He knew Marcus was thinking about proposing. How could he possibly know that? Because they're watching, Ryan. They're always watching. They have people, contacts, ways of getting information. This isn't just them being overprotective parents. Emma went inside and returned with a folder. They gave me this. Said now that I knew, I should understand the full scope of what they do. Inside were documents that looked like professional surveillance reports. Photos of Emma at work, at restaurants, at friends' houses. Photos of her current boyfriend Marcus that included his license plate, his work schedule, his apartment address. There were background checks on every person Emma had dated, worked with, or spent significant time with. They have the same files on you, she said. They know about your current job performance, your financial situation, your dating life. They know things about your coworkers, your friends, your neighbors. This is insane. This is criminal. That's what I said. But Dad showed me something else. Emma pulled out a business card. They're not acting alone. This is some kind of organization. Family Protection Services. But it's not a real company. It's a network of parents who do this. The card looked official but felt wrong. No address, just a phone number and a website that probably didn't exist. They said other families in the neighborhood are involved. The Hendersons we thought they were watching? They're watching back. The Chens, the Williams family, they're all part of this. Part of what? I don't know exactly. But it's bigger than just surveillance. They're coordinating, sharing information, making decisions about their adult children's lives. They called it community-based family guidance. Emma showed me more photos. Me leaving my apartment that morning. Me at the coffee shop on 3rd Street. Me talking to my coworker Jessica outside our building. They took these yesterday, she said. After you confronted them. They're having me followed? We're both being followed. They said since we discovered the program, they needed to monitor our adjustment period. I felt sick. Not just watched, but actively tracked like suspects in some investigation. What did you tell them? What could I tell them? I said I understood they were trying to protect us. I said I wouldn't tell anyone. Emma's voice hardened. I lied. Because whatever this is, it's not protection. It's control. That night, I couldn't go back to my apartment. I stayed in a hotel in Davis, paid cash, turned off my phone. But even there, I felt watched. Every person in the lobby seemed suspicious. Every car in the parking lot might be monitoring me. Emma texted me from a friend's phone. They asked where you were. I said I didn't know. They didn't believe me. The next morning, I found a voicemail on my phone. Mom's voice, cheerful and casual. Hi honey, just checking in. Dad and I are worried about you. Call us back so we know you're safe. But underlying the maternal concern was something else. A warning. They knew I wasn't at home. They knew I was avoiding them. And they weren't going to let me disappear. What I didn't understand yet was that discovering their surveillance was just the beginning. The network Emma had mentioned wasn't just watching their own children. They were watching everyone. And my attempt to escape their monitoring had triggered something much larger than family dysfunction. Have you ever felt like your parents knew too much about your private life? What would you do if you discovered they'd been secretly following and documenting your every move since childhood? Because what we found out next revealed that our parents weren't just overprotective, they were part of something that had been controlling our entire neighborhood for years. I always wondered how my parents had so much detailed information about everyone's personal lives. What I discovered on March 22, 2023, revealed that their surveillance network had been documenting family breakdowns for years, including predicting when dangerous situations would escalate. My name is Jennifer Martinez, and I'd been living separately from my father David for 3 years. Mom and I had moved to a small house on Willow Court in Bakersfield after his psychological abuse became unbearable. The constant criticism, the financial control, the way he monitored our every move and explode over minor issues, we'd finally escaped. That Tuesday morning, Dad called my cell phone at 7:30 a.m. I almost didn't answer. "Jennifer, I need money," he said without preamble. $5,000. Emergency. "Dad, you know I don't have that kind of money." "Don't lie to me. I know what you make at the medical center. I know what your mother gets from her job at the school district." Something in his tone made me uncomfortable. He sounded different, more desperate but also more calculating than usual. "Even if I had it, I wouldn't give it to you," I said. "You haven't paid child support in 6 months. I'm coming over. We'll discuss this in person." "No. Don't come here. I'll be there in an hour." He hung up. I immediately called Mom at work. "Dad's coming over demanding money." He sounded threatening. "Lock the doors. Don't let him in. I'll try to get home early." But Dad arrived before Mom could leave work. I watched through the living room window as his beat-up 2010 Ford F-150 pulled into our driveway. He sat in the truck for several minutes, talking on his phone. When he finally got out, he walked directly to our front door like he owned the place. "Jennifer, open the door. We need to talk." "I told you no. Leave or I'm calling the police." "You think the police will help you?" "I know people, Jennifer. I know what goes on in this neighborhood." That phrase, "I know what goes on," sent chills down my spine. It reminded me of conversations I'd overheard between my parents years ago, before the separation. References to the network and community monitoring. "I'm not opening the door." "Fine. We'll do this the hard way." I heard him walk around to the back of the house. Then I heard the distinctive sound of our sliding glass door being forced open. He'd broken in. I ran to my bedroom and called 911, but Dad was already in the house. "Jennifer! Get out here now! I'm on the phone with the police!" "Hang up the phone." His voice was right outside my bedroom door. "Hang up the phone or I'll make this much worse." When I didn't respond, he started searching the house. I could hear him opening drawers, moving furniture, going through our personal belongings. The 911 operator was telling me to stay on the line, that officers were on their way. "I know you have cash hidden somewhere," Dad shouted. "Your mother always kept emergency money. I know her patterns." How could he know Mom's patterns? They'd been separated for 3 years, and she changed all her routines after we moved. Dad found Mom's jewelry box in her bedroom. I heard him dumping it out, probably looking for anything valuable. Then he found her purse and started going through it. $50? That's all? I know there's more money in this house. Dad, please just leave. Take the $50 and go. Don't tell me what to do." His voice was getting angrier. "I raised you. I know when you're lying." The front door opened. Mom was home. "David, get out of my house." Mom's voice was steady but scared. "Our house. I'm still on the mortgage, Susan. You haven't paid the mortgage in 8 months. Get out. Not until I get what I came for." I heard them arguing in the living room. Mom was trying to de-escalate, but Dad was getting more aggressive. He started making threats about taking me back to his place, about having legal rights as my father. She's 23, David. She doesn't have to go anywhere with you. She's my daughter. I know what's best for her. That's when I heard him grab Mom. She cried out, and I heard furniture being knocked over. I couldn't stay hidden any longer. When I came out of my bedroom, Dad had Mom pinned against the wall. Her face was red, and she was struggling to breathe. Let her go. There's my girl. Now, where's the money? There is no money. We're barely paying rent. Liar. He released Mom but grabbed me instead. I know your mother has savings. I know she gets money from somewhere else. What are you talking about? The neighborhood watch payments. The reporting fees. Don't act like you don't know. I had no idea what he meant, but Mom's face went pale. David, that's not how it works. Then explain to me how you afford this place. Explain to me how you knew I was having financial problems before I told anyone. I don't know what you're talking about. The surveillance network, Susan. The family monitoring program. You're part of it, aren't you? You're getting paid to watch other families, and you're being watched too. Mom looked terrified, not of Dad's physical threats, but of what he was saying. You're not supposed to know about that, she whispered. I know about a lot of things. I know about the Hendersons across the street. I know about the Williams family down the block. I know about the reports that get filed, the money that gets paid, the decisions that get made about people's lives. Dad was holding my arm so tight it hurt. Your mother and sister are part of a network that's been watching families, controlling families for years. They get paid to monitor and report on their neighbors. And now they're being monitored themselves. You're crazy, I said, but I was remembering strange conversations, unexplained income, the way Mom always seemed to know things about neighbors she shouldn't know. Ask her about the cameras. Ask her about the files. Ask her about the decisions they make about which families stay together and which ones get broken up. The police sirens were getting closer. Dad heard them too. This isn't over, he said, releasing me. You think you're safe because you moved away? You think you're safe because you're part of their network? Nobody's safe from these people. He grabbed the $50 from Mom's purse and headed for the back door. Tell your network friends that David Martinez knows what they're doing. Tell them I want my cut, or I start talking to people who aren't part of the program. After he left, Mom collapsed on the couch, shaking. When the police arrived, she told them it was a domestic dispute, that Dad had broken in looking for money. She didn't mention anything about surveillance networks or neighborhood monitoring. But that night, after the police left, she sat me down and told me everything. Our family hadn't just been torn apart by Dad's abuse. We'd been systematically monitored and manipulated by a network of neighbors who documented family problems and made decisions about interventions. The separation hadn't been our choice alone. It had been recommended, facilitated, and monitored by people who treated our family dysfunction as a community management issue. And Dad wasn't just angry about money. He'd discovered that his own family was being used as part of a larger program, and he wanted either compensation or revenge. Have you ever wondered if your family problems were being watched and documented by people in your community? What would you do if you discovered that your neighbors were being paid to monitor and report on your personal life? Because what we learned next revealed that our neighborhood surveillance network had been making decisions about families for years, and Dad's threats were about to expose everything. Everything connected on March 25, 2023. My name is Marcus Chen, and I'd been piecing together my family's involvement in this neighborhood surveillance network when I discovered the most disturbing truth. My divorced father had been secretly documenting my entire adult life. I was 26, living in my own apartment in Fresno, when I found the storage unit key hidden in my childhood bedroom at Mom's house. She'd been acting strangely since Jennifer Martinez's break-in incident, nervous, making hushed phone calls, checking locks repeatedly. When I asked her about it, she'd just say she was worried about security issues in the neighborhood. The storage unit was registered under a fake name, Thomas Park, but the key worked. Inside, I found my life laid out in obsessive detail across multiple filing cabinets and storage boxes. Hundreds of photos of me from the past 8 years. Me leaving work at Pacific Medical Supply, grocery shopping at the Safeway on Shaw Avenue, on dates with various girlfriends, visiting friends at their apartments. Professional quality surveillance photos with timestamps and location data. My father had been following me since I graduated college, documenting every significant moment of my adult life. Detailed logs of my activities filled 3 thick binders. March 15th, Target shopping, 6:47 p.m. Purchased personal items including toiletries and snacks. Spent $47.83. Used debit card ending in 4729. March 18th, dinner with Sarah Chin, no relation, Thai Palace restaurant on Blackstone Avenue. Intimate conversation observed. Relationship assessment. Potential long-term compatibility. Videos of me in my apartment. Somehow, he'd gotten cameras inside my private space. I watched footage of myself eating dinner, working on my laptop, talking on the phone with friends and family. The angles suggested multiple hidden cameras: bedroom, living room, kitchen. My most private moments had been recorded and catalogued. But the most chilling discovery was a thick folder labeled Subject Integration Analysis. It contained psychological profiles, relationship assessments, and behavioral predictions about my life. Professional-level analysis that went far beyond a bitter ex-husband's obsession with his son's activities. The folder contained reports submitted to something called Regional Family Monitoring Initiative. My father had been filing regular updates about my life to this organization. They'd been paying him substantial amounts for this information. I found payment records going back 6 years. Monthly deposits of $800 to $1,200 for subject monitoring and reporting. My father had been earning more than $10,000 annually by stalking me. Bank statements showed he'd made over $60,000 total from this surveillance contract. The reports revealed the true scope of the surveillance network. Multiple families in our old neighborhood were being monitored. The Hendersons, the Williams family, the Martinez family, all under observation by parents, neighbors, and hired contractors. Each family had designated primary subjects, usually young adults like me, and secondary subjects, including spouses, elderly parents, and teenage children. But it went deeper than simple observation. The reports included intervention recommendations, suggestions for manipulating subjects' lives to achieve desired outcomes. My father had recommended sabotaging my relationship with Katie, my college girlfriend, because she was encouraging subject to pursue graduate education outside monitoring range. He'd suggested I be passed over for certain job opportunities that would take me to other cities. I found evidence that these recommendations had been implemented. Phone records showed calls to Katie's parents, warning them about my family instability issues. Calls to my former employers, suggesting I had reliability concerns that affected my job prospects. Calls to landlords I'd applied with, claiming I had undisclosed financial obligations. My father hadn't just been watching my life, he'd been actively controlling it for years. Every major disappointment, every relationship that inexplicably failed, every opportunity that fell through, it had all been orchestrated. The final section contains something called Network Integration Protocol. My father had been recruited into this surveillance system during his divorce from Mom. His obsession with monitoring and controlling our family had made him a perfect candidate for the program. The organization had multiple objectives: family stability monitoring, community threat assessment, and behavioral modification through targeted interventions. They weren't just watching families, they were engineering family outcomes according to predetermined criteria. I discovered that Mom had been forced to participate. The divorce settlement had included clauses requiring her cooperation with community safety initiatives. She'd been reporting on our family, our neighbors, and me to avoid losing custody or financial support. Her monthly reports were shorter than Dad's but equally detailed about my activities, mental state, and social connections. The network had been testing methods for large-scale family manipulation. Using divorced parents' obsessions, nosy neighbors' tendencies, and economic pressures to create a volunteer surveillance force that monitored and controlled entire communities. The psychological profiles suggested they were studying how to influence career choices, relationship formation, and even political beliefs through carefully timed interventions. My father's break-in at the Martinez house hadn't been about money. It had been about exposing the network after they tried to cut him out. He'd discovered that his ex-wife Susan Martinez was earning more than him for similar monitoring work, and he'd threatened to reveal everything unless they gave him a bigger role in the operation. But the network had been prepared for this possibility. I found termination protocols in the files. When subjects or monitors became non-compliant, they were isolated, discredited, or eliminated from the program through various means. Non-compliant monitors had their contracts terminated and were often subjected to harassment campaigns to ensure their silence. The final document was my own termination notice. Now that I'd discovered the surveillance, I was classified as a program risk. My father's monitoring contract was being transferred to someone else. Someone I wouldn't recognize or suspect. The new monitor would be a professional contractor with no personal connection to me. I called Jennifer Martinez immediately. They're still watching us. The network is bigger than our parents. They're transitioning surveillance to new people. Who? I don't know. But they've been planning for exposure. They have backup systems, other monitors, ways to maintain control even if the original watchers are discovered. We met that night at a diner in Modesto, halfway between our cities. Jennifer brought her mother Susan, who finally told us everything she'd been hiding. The network had started as a legitimate neighborhood watch program 15 years ago. But it had evolved into something else when they realized how much control they could exert over families by monitoring and manipulating personal relationships. What began as crime prevention had become social engineering. They'd been testing psychological manipulation techniques, studying how to break up marriages, influence career decisions, and control social connections. Our families had been test subjects in a long-term experiment in community control. The data they'd collected was being used to refine techniques for larger-scale implementation. The network now operated in dozens of neighborhoods across 3 counties. They'd perfected their methods and were expanding. The ultimate goal was creating communities where every family relationship was monitored and managed by the network. They wanted to eliminate undesirable social patterns and promote community-beneficial behaviors. But our exposure had triggered their final phase. They were cutting ties with the original monitors, our parents, and transferring surveillance to professional contractors who couldn't be traced back to personal relationships. The amateur surveillance phase was ending, and the professional phase was beginning. We'd discovered the truth, but we'd also made ourselves permanent targets of a surveillance network that had been perfecting family manipulation for over a decade. The files contained contingency plans for compromised subjects, people who discovered the monitoring. We were now classified as ongoing security risks. Susan Martinez revealed that the network had connections to local law enforcement, social services, and educational institutions. They weren't just watching, they were embedded in the systems that governed our daily lives. Fighting them would mean fighting people who had access to our employment records, medical information, and legal histories. The most terrifying revelation was that the network had been preparing for this moment all along. They'd studied how people react to discovering surveillance, how they try to escape it, and how to counter those efforts. Every move we might make had been anticipated and planned for. Have you ever felt like your personal relationships were being manipulated by outside forces? What would you do if you discovered that your own family had been part of a network designed to control entire communities? Because what we learned that night was that exposing the truth hadn't freed us, it had just moved us into a different level of the same system. The surveillance never stopped. It just became invisible. Thanks so much for watching. I can't express enough how much your support means. The likes, the comments, it all really helps the channel grow. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. I always take the time to read them. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on any new videos. See you next time.